Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is the Reverend Jennifer Innis. It is my great joy to be the minister with this congregation of people of all ages and all stages of life. It is a joy to be here, and let me give you a little bit of an idea about what we are about. We embrace joy, we love exuberantly, we enrich connections, we add to the hope and the healing of the world whenever possible, and we encourage growth in our personal as well as our congregational development. So we celebrate good things whenever we can, we provide opportunities to strengthen relationships, and we want to keep growing in all the ways that we can. And we just want to make our lives better in so many senses, including living into a more just and peaceful world. And we also take to heart our relationships. This is the ancestral home of the Peoria people. They were here long before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. So we take a moment in our service, as we've been asked to do, to honor the Peoria people for who they were and for who they are today. I want to thank folks for joining us for this morning, whether in person or online. especially the folks who are joining us kind of for the first time or for a fairly early time. It is no small effort to kind of come into an established community and look around and say, how can I be connected here? And let's see, I want to also offer that we have plenty of name tags. We have lots of welcoming people. We love all the questions. So by all means, help us get to know you. And thank you for joining us. I want to invite folks to stay after the service for coffee and refreshments in our fellowship hall. And if you're online, there's a little conversation probably on Zoom as well. So come on and be around. Let me invite folks check your devices to see if they are in worship mode. We know we have many devices in this day and age. And of course, if there are medical devices that need to stay on, we understand that as well. I also have a few notes for today. One, after service today, we have the salad lunch and a bit of a potluck in Fellowship Hall. And this is in advance of our financial update town hall conversation. And because this is a more informal, we don't necessarily have to take votes and things like that as we do for our congregational meetings. We're going to give it a go and try to be in Fellowship Hall. Stay in there for the conversational, for the financial update as well. Yes, we will have amplification and so on. And so this is a conversation and a presentation, not a voting meeting per se. But we hope you will attend and have a little bit, get a better sense of where things are with the church's finance and also see an initial budget proposed for the next fiscal year. Next Sunday, let me offer a note about that because next Sunday is Girl Scout Sunday. We'll be celebrating March 9th, and there will be cookies on sale after coffee hour. Please come and support all the wonderful scouts. We kind of do a collective activity for all the scouts that are part of the congregation to share in the benefit of the cookie sales. So please come and join us for that as well. And also, after service next week, in addition to cookies, because cookies, we have an opportunity. If you've been thinking about becoming a member of the congregation, if you want to know more about becoming a member of the congregation, so we'll have a little chance after service for a new member joining meeting with Regina Stanley, our membership coordinator, and with me, probably over cookies. Let's see. Oh, and I want to offer a note of appreciation. We have wonderful members of the congregation who kind of take a turn and decorate our altar for a given month. Last month was Judith Corin Shanahan with like Beatles and Imagine and Love and all this good stuff. And this being the first Sunday of March, I want to thank Joe Lakota for offering the decoration for our altar. This month, what a powerful piece she created here. So thank you, Joe. And now I invite you to enter into our worship with our opening hymn, I Know This Rose Will Open. Sherry, we will play once and sing through 3 times. So 4 times total. Okay. Rise in body or spirit, for I know this rose will open. I invite Jean Jost to come forward for offering our opening words.
Good morning. The opening words today are hoping, trusting for so many things by Katie Carandian Morris. Here we have come into this sacred place, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration and consolation. Here we have come into this space, bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing, however we are changed.
And I invite Patrick and Nate Price for our chalice lighting.
We light this chalice with an open heart. We light this chalice with resolve. We light this chalice with tears still fresh on our cheeks. We light this chalice in hope, a tiny flame we nurture. We light this chalice with reverence for this place, for these people, for this time. We light this chalice with all our souls longing to be who we are, to be who we will become, to be ourselves. We light this chalice in self-love, in giving love, in holy love.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing. Let us enter into a time of candles and reflection. During our music for meditation, you are welcome to come forward and light candles that represent what is in your mind and on your heart. And if you are joining us online, let these candles be for you as well. Let us enter into our music for meditation. From Pat Uriblichty. We come together with our tired minds and bodies, with our confusion and questions, with our uncertainties and our fears. We come together with our hopes and our pasts and our ideas, our passions and our faith. We come together bringing all of who we are, trusting that in gathering we will be renewed, and that together we can create the world we long for. So, this is the time in the service for the sharing of joys and sorrows in the congregation. And I'll offer that this is one of those rare weeks that I don't have something written down, but I'm going to bet, based on a certain educated experience, that there are, in fact, things on our minds and on our hearts. I want to encourage us, perhaps for this week, to reach out to our neighbors, to reach out to our friends, to think of a person we haven't thought of in a while and call them, contact them, just say hello, and how much that might make a difference in each other's lives. That by itself can be a great joy. In our larger world, I want to offer a note. Yes, the stole is chosen on purpose, about standing with Ukraine and for those who are fighting against authoritarianism. I also want to offer a note of regard for the uh, Muslim world. They are beginning the month of Ramadan for this month, which is when they deepen into their spiritual practices of fasting during the day and uh, as a way of kind of focusing and concentrating and being present with God of their understanding, and also to be consistent in practicing their other service and acts as well. I invite us to hold one more moment of quiet, one more moment of being present right in this time, in this place, the one moment we know we have. I invite you to enter into this moment with me, and we pause and breathe in this circle of care. For some of us, this might be the one moment of breathing we get all week. So let us hold this well with each other. Let us pause and breathe together. Salam, shalom, amen, and blessed be. Now, I want to offer a note today that uh, unfortunately Jessie Laughlin is ill. Many thanks to everybody who is kind of mobilizing to take care of things in her absence. There's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes that many folks might not see, but it has come together as far as I can tell. So thank you to everybody who is part of that, which also means I get to tell the story today. All right. The story today is Stand Tall, Molly Lou Mellon by Patty Lovell. Okay. Molly Lou Mellon stood just taller than her dog and was the shortest girl in her first grade. And she didn't mind. Her grandma told her, Walk as proudly as you can, and the world will look up to you. And so she did. Molly Lou Mellon had buck teeth that stood out so far she could stack pennies on them. There we go. There we go. She's standing tall. Ooh, a little rambunctious on the stairs. Standing very tall on the phone book. Remember the phone book? I remember phone books. They were so useful. And the pennies. There we go. So she didn't mind that her teeth stuck out that far. Her grandma had told her, smile big and the world will smile right alongside you. And so she did. Molly Lou Mellon also, I love those teeth, man. She had a voice that sounded like a bullfrog being squeezed by a boa constrictor. And she didn't mind. Her grandma had told her, sing out clear and strong, and the world will cry tears of joy. And so she did. Molly Lou Mellon, there we go, singing out clear and strong. Sometimes those might have been tears of joy, and sometimes those might have been tears, but they were strong. There we go. Molly Lou Mellon was often fingered, and she didn't mind. Her grandma had told her, believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you too. And so she did. Then Molly Lou Mellon moved to a new town. She had to say goodbye to her grandma and all of her friends. And she had to start in a new school. And on the first day of this new school for Molly Lou Mellon, Ronald Durkin called her Shrimpo in gym class. When the game started, Molly Lou Mellon caught the football, ran under the legs of Ronald Durkin, and scored a touchdown. And all the children thought, wow, she's good. And Ronald Durkin felt very foolish. Now, on the second day of school, Ronald Durkin called her a bucky-tooth beaver. Molly Lou Mellon took out her pennies and stacked 10 high on her teeth and smiled as big as day. And that's end on end. That's not like a stack. That's end on end. That's skill, man. And all the children smiled with glee, and Ronald Durkin, well, felt a little foolish. On the third day of school, Ronald Durkin said, you sound like a sick duck, honk, honk. And Mary Lou Mellon let out a quack, so clear, so strong that it made Ronald Durkin somersault backwards and hit his head, and he had to go to the nurse. Yikes. All the children cried with a little bit of joy to be free of Ronald Durkin for the rest of the afternoon, and Ronald Durkin felt very foolish. On the fourth day of school, Ronald Durkin said that she'd made the snowflake all wrong. Then Molly Lou Mellon opened up her paper and revealed the most beautiful snowflake of all, and the children oohed and awed, even Ronald. And on the fifth day of school, Ronald Durkin brought Molly Lou Mellon a stacking penny for her tooth and smiled at her. And that night, Molly Lou Mellon took out a pencil and a paper and wrote a letter to her grandma. Dear Grandma, I wanted to tell you that everything you told me was exactly right. Love, Molly Lou Mellon. I wonder, I wonder if there's times when people have told you that you couldn't do what you thought you could do. I wonder if there are people in your lives who have told you you can do everything and anything. And I wonder what Ronald Durkin brought home to his own family after he figured out how to be friendly and care for and respect Molly Lou Mellon. Thank you for joining me for the story. And now let us sing out the children and youth and their adults to their program for today. In a world where so many times we are told no, we are told you can't, we are told that you are not enough, or that something's wrong, or you're a little weird. This is the kind of place where we want to say to each other, yes, and you are welcome, and you can be weird with us, it's okay. These are all good things that we do. And we all support one another in this effort we make. We do so much to make this possible. And we give of ourselves, we give of our resources, we give of our financial offering to make it possible. And so we take a moment in our service to offer that act of giving as a reminder of so much that is done to make this place and this moment and this yes possible. And we also give back a portion of what we receive. We send it out into the world through our Share the Plate program. We send half of the undesignated offering to a local organization that is doing good work in Peoria, in the area. And this month, our Share the Plate offering goes to East Bluff Community Center Food Pantry. So that food pantry operates 4 Sundays a month from 8:30 a.m. to noon. Folks get to receive some items for food, have a bag prepared. They also have a chance to have something to eat as well. And this is open to residents, low income, unhoused, all kinds of folks are able to access this resource. And so we really want to make sure to sponsor it, to include it, to support it. So please, if through our Share the Plate or through our offering, please use the envelopes in the pews to designate your donation. Go to the QR code in the order of service. I want to thank you for all the ways that you support the essential work of this congregation here among us and out in the world. And now I invite the ushers to please come forward. Our reading for today is The Work That's Ours to Do by Dana Lee Simon. And she begins with quoting from a song by Emma's Revolution, one of our Unitarian Universalist musical duos who's known across the country. And this in particular was written by Pat Humphreys. We are swimming in this stream together, some in power and some in pain. We're all swimming to the other side. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We're all swimming to the other side. On a recent hike in the Utah mountains, I happened upon one of nature's miracles, the Kokanee salmon spawn. It's a wonder I try to witness every year, beautiful, meditative, raw, and profound. As we came near the trail's end, we could see fish in the water below making their way upstream. And to our delight, crowds of kokanee were congregating in the deeper pools further back up the canyon. Kokanee became bright red at spawning time, so they looked like flames dancing underwater. And we sat near one pool for a while, watching. Eventually, my eyes focused on a singular fish kind of stuck below a rock wall just below a deeper pool. And as I watched her swim without getting anywhere, I found myself wanting to help. I imagined scooping her up and assisting her over the rock wall. And pretty soon, others in my hiking group started saying the same thing I was thinking. We all wanted to help, but we didn't. It's against the law to help to disturb the kokanee during this precious time in their life cycle. More importantly, we decided that we could trust that this incredible creature had everything in her that she needed to engage the work that was hers to do. This idea that we all already have everything we need within us to meet the life that is before us is something that I often use as encouragement when I meet people in spiritual discernment. It's a reminder to connect to our wholeness. It's an invitation to put away the lie that we have swallowed, hook, line, sinker, that we are separate from God, whose presence with us is unconditional and unwavering. Some might call that sense of God mystery, love, or the universe. Goes by many names. I appreciate this reminder from the kokanee because although I believe it down to my very core, I find it easier to say it to others than embrace it myself. I appreciate this invitation because it summons me again and again to turn my face to God, to love, to the one who always reflects the truth of who I am. It was hard to turn away from the stream that day. Heading home, I felt like I was leaving a holy place. And I was. And it is. I take the lesson of the kokanee with me. I need what they teach for my journey. Here ends the reading. Please rise in body or spirit for our hymn number 95, There is More Love Somewhere. In the gray hymnal, if you'd like the music. I'll offer some of the times I've heard that song sing, especially in our larger denominational gatherings, that there will be a little tweak to the song a little ways in, which is also, there is more love right here. There's more joy right here. There's more peace right here. This is also part of that song. I appreciate Dana Lee Simon's story about the salmon, as she says, this idea that we have everything we need to meet within us to meet the life that is before us. We have everything we need within us to meet the life that is before us. It's a reminder to connect to our wholeness. It's an invitation to put away the lie we have swallowed, hook, line, sinker, that we are separate, that we are not enough, that we are not okay in the universal sense. I love that. We have everything we need within us to meet the life that is before us. And I wonder if you believe that. This is not a test. But I wonder to the degree to which you believe that, or do you hear that? I had to ask this myself in the course of putting this together. This moment of talking about trust, trusting in oneself. This came out of the worship meeting the other day. How powerful it is to be talking about trust, how fragile this thing, especially trust in ourselves. So I wonder, when and how did you learn to trust yourself? It's not an absolute measure. There's not a 100% accomplishment of this. We just recognize that from the outset. But in general, when did you learn to trust yourself? Think about that for a sec. Studies show that faith in self most frequently comes from nurturing circumstances. A loving family or adults who affirmed us or saw us. It strikes me, again, how tender this conversation is about trust, about self-confidence, about self-love, how these senses of self are so established so early on in our lives at such young ages. And especially how often a sense of self is complicated by social expectations, by the neighborhood in which we grow up, by the larger forces of history, by the larger forces of oppression and division. This morning, one of my colleagues shared a video of a little girl on Facebook. Now, as much as social media contributes to low self-esteem and social anxiety and a host of other problems, it also can be deeply affirming and help us remember, even whatever age we are, some things that are also true and need to be learned at a very young age. This video that was shared is a conversation between a young African American girl and an adult, I believe it's her grandmother. And this girl, I think she was about age 4, it's a close-up of her in her car seat, has beautiful curly hair and it's swept up into a couple of puffs and some braids that go with it, and the very front is a big orange bow. It's delightful, it's adorable, it's wonderful, and she loves it. And she is all proud smiles when she recalls a conversation with a boy in her class. A boy named Owen criticizes her hair and says he doesn't like it, calls it crazy. Mm-mm. And the girl responds right back to him, "My mommy made it. If you don't like it, I'll keep it for myself. If you don't like it, I'll keep it for myself." And the mother or the grandmother, who's the adult talking, is recording this exchange, and she affirms this little girl. "Good girl, baby. I'm so proud of you. You stood up for yourself. That's what matters. What matters is that you like it. It's your hair." And the girl's like, "Oh my gosh, how many of us have had that kind of encouragement in our lives? When have you had that? How often has it been there?" This moment was particularly meaningful for a few reasons. One, just for the sake of that little girl and the adult in her life. And I'm sure they went off and talked to the mom and shared that too. And also probably for Owen, whether he knows it or not, the little boy. It was a beautiful moment of self worth, of self expression. It was a moment of agency, of this girl taking control over her body and how other people saw it. That's powerful by itself. She defined herself well and clearly. This is a moment that is particularly meaningful for women, for example, the emerging woman that she's becoming. For women who have been fighting against the voices telling us how to be, who to be, how to submit, how to focus more on other people's lives than our own first. And this is a moment that is especially powerful for folks who are Black, who are Indigenous, who are people of color, who have been told for centuries that their hair and their bodies and their selves, their existence is not good enough and should be different than how they came into the world. What a moment in just this little conversation with this young child. Because there will be moments in her life, it's pretty much guaranteed. I bet we all know these moments when we haven't always trusted ourselves. We haven't said yes or no when we really needed to, made a different choice, when we needed to speak up about something that was important to us, about a criticism that needed to be addressed, for example, in a piece of work, said, "Yeah, my work is worthwhile and good, never mind what you say," for example. This is in part where this conversation about trust yourself came from, is how many moments we have known in our lives when we didn't trust ourselves and didn't say something, didn't show up. Now, I will also offer that there are moments maybe when we shouldn't trust ourselves, or maybe the first impulse isn't actually the right choice or the best choice. Because sometimes we're wrong. We offer sometimes we're wrong, and that's true. But more so sometimes we're trying to change a habit. I know I've talked about the cookies a lot, but sometimes we're trying not to have the cookies. And so sometimes it's a matter of trusting ourselves to say no to a cookie, even though a lot of us wants to say yes. We want to change something about how we're leading and conducting our lives because we know it will do something better. That's a sense of trust, that acting out of our sense of self and resisting a certain impulse. That's a lot. but also more seriously for those of us who struggle with addiction and recovery. Trusting ourselves is about trusting the potential and the value of who we are, and again, resisting an impulse, resisting a temptation, being able to do that process and be in recovery and say no because we know it's going to be better and healthier for us in our whole lives. That's a powerful bit of trusting in ourselves as well. So often in messages in our world, we hear things that are contrary to what our minds and hearts might do. Again, we know this with women, we know this with children, we know this with folks who are African American, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. We know this with folks who are disabled, with folks who are mentally ill and realize they need help. One of the folks that needs most to be heard and paid attention to are our veterans when they realize something is wrong and I need care so that I am more whole and more able to function. But how so often we are diminished by the people around us. We are told we do not have worth, as Molly Lou was hearing from Ronald in the story, who was criticizing her looks, who was criticizing her teeth, who was criticizing her voice. And what would have happened if her grandmother had not been there saying, "You are, and you are wonderful, and everything you do is fantastic. You are." What if her grandmother had not been there? And if Ronald's voice had been sowing seeds of doubt, had been making her question her worth, wondering what is real and what is not, making her question what she was feeling, what she wanted, and diminished her power as a result. We find this in so many places in our society, so many places in our lives. One of the places that shows up in our society, and more so now, as we're getting better at this conversation, even as we're not necessarily great at addressing this, is the mix of paying attention to self and accessing resources in the question of folks who are neurodivergent of all kinds. One of the running themes of this year is in conversations this year that I've been having, I think, in the church and also in our larger world, is how profoundly people differ in the way they receive information, how profoundly we differ in the way we process information, and how we interact as a result. I'm amazed by the scope of how the human brain works. It is stunning. Let me offer an example of this conversation. One of the most desired signs of life after the worst of the pandemic was how many people were in church, how many people were in the sanctuary, how many people were at coffee hour. And so rising numbers and higher energy were seen as positive signs. And by and large, I would agree. It was so nice to see people. I'm still enjoying the fact that we can just see people again. I'm still there. Many of us in recent years have been in crowded rooms and have kind of enjoyed the energy. Sometimes we struggle a little bit with that energy. I'll tell you, there really is probably a limit to the number of people who can be in fellowship hall and still be able to talk. We haven't found it yet, but I would love that problem. But some of us really can't be in big, loud spaces. Some of us really need quieter, less stimulating spaces, even as much as we want to be around people. For some of us, coffee hour itself is challenging, just quietly sitting and talking at tables. If we can have a big tent for the range of theology within Unitarian Universalism, then we can have a big tent for the range of our brains. You may not know that Jesse Laughlin created a sensory-friendly room in our religious education wing. The light is reduced by there's a little cloud graphic over the light fixture. The walls are mostly free of decoration, and there are quiet spaces to sit on the floor. There's even an egg you can curl up into a pod. So, as much as people and a lively energy are indicators of health and abundance and engagement in the congregation, this space that Jesse has created is meant for pausing, is meant to be quieter. And children in classes can choose that space pretty much whenever they want it. And as an adult, I kind of recommend it too. What we create here in our religious education for children and youth, at its core, is a sense of trust in the self. One of the programs we offer is Spirit Play, which is new to the congregation, relatively speaking. Spirit Play is story based, and we provide, at the end of the story, the storyteller provides a few open questions, beginning with, I wonder. If you've heard a lot more I wonder around here, that's where it's coming from. And those wondering questions are not looking for a specific answer, but there can be many responses. There's no one right answer. And the room, the Spirit Play room, is prepared with options for art and building and creativity, for spiritual reflection, and much more. So after the story, children can choose from any activity in the room. The premise is that children, as human beings, right, have their own existential questions. They have big questions about life and death and purpose and meaning. They may not have the vocabulary that we as adults use, but they have those questions. And so, what we provide is a safe space for exploration. And what the children do with the craft items, with the activity items, even with a story on a given day, even if they've heard the story a particular way before, the story, what they do with those materials might not have anything obvious to do with the story shared. We create a place where children are trusted that they are their own guides in the embrace of a safe space. In Unitarian Universalism, we may or may not talk about God, but we do talk about love and mystery and the universe. So I want to talk a little bit about making these connections between love, which we certainly create with our education program, and trusting yourself and its larger implications and the profound implications it can have in our lives. We need the sense of love and trust in ourselves to survive and to thrive. We need a sense of self-worth. We need faith in who we are. And sometimes saying that can be obvious, but the how is where it gets tricky. And it's not just about us as individuals or us as a congregation, I will say, but also it means a larger sense of presence in the world. There are larger implications. My colleague, the Reverend Scott Alexander, talks about this in his sermon from 2015, May Your Pillow Catch Fire. And he talks about, I know the title wasn't obvious to me either, but that's okay. He talks about why people, he did something of a dive into why people risked their lives to shelter Jews from the Nazis, at grave risk to their own lives and that of their families. And he says, what sociologists generally found is that most of those who bravely hid Jews from Hitler's final solution shared two personal characteristics. First, these were people with a strong sense of self-worth. And secondly, they all had a clear sense of compassionate values learned in childhood. So self-worth, compassion. And he says, first, I think it should not surprise us that these rescuers of humanity shared a sense of personal worth and security. For doesn't it make perfect psychological sense that, generally speaking, one has to feel good about one's own self before one is able to express such goodness toward others? And this, of course, is not a new idea, he says. For well over 2,000 years ago, Jesus framed this enduring gospel of human responsibility and goodness in this way: love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And Jesus seemed to have intuitively understood that love and respect for self is the spiritual prerequisite for love and respect directed outward toward others. In our time, it has been the humanistic psychologists, most notably Abraham Maslow and Erich Fromm, who have asserted that self-esteem and personal security are the starting place for all the healthy and humane human relationships and policies and societies. So trust yourself is well grounded in loving yourself and living in integrity and focused on what matters most, even in the most terrible situations. And this week we saw that sense of self in Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, particularly on Friday. While he was in the Oval Office being bullied by our US president and vice president on the biggest global stage, being pressured to submit in a way that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with power, the Ukrainian president remained focused and grounded in the love of his people and his country, and showed his merit in that critical moment. And what flows from that conversation will matter and will make a difference in our world. In fact, it already has. Everything we can do to love ourselves, to trust ourselves, to be in this moment together makes a difference. On the smallest scale, on the grandest scale, the microcosm and the macrocosm, it is all related, it is all around us. Let me close with a thought from Irish author Brian Doyle. You must trust that you being you, the best possible you, matters somehow. That trying to be an honest and tender parent will echo for centuries through your tribe. That doing your chosen work with creativity and diligence will shiver people far beyond your ken. And that being an alternative and being an attentive and generous friend and citizen will prevent a thread of two of the social fabric from unraveling. And you must do all of this without the certain knowledge that you will never get proper credit for it. And in fact, the vast majority of things you do right will go utterly unmarked. You simply do it one child, one person at a time. This is what he says, that the small is huge and the tiny is vast. And that is, in fact, the exchange of love and trust in our lives. It is small and huge all at once. So let us go forth. Let's go forth in the spirit of love, in this effort to keep trusting ourselves and model that and do so for others. Let us go forth into greatness within and without. Amen. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Together, we have enjoyed the warmth and beauty of stories of this flame and of this special community. As our chalice flame is extinguished this morning, we can still remember that its glow is carried within us. We can use our inner lights and this flame to kindle new sparks throughout our lives and in the world. May the spirit of peace and togetherness bless your lives.
May we remember that trust, like love, grows in small moments, in promises kept and confidences held, in boundaries respected and amends made, in showing up again and again. May we be brave enough to risk trust, patient enough to build it slowly, and gentle with ourselves and others when it breaks. Our worship is ended. Let our service begin.